The male sexual drive. Essential concepts and context. Testosterone shapes male sexual drive. Hormones play a central role in sexual development, and testosterone is the primary driver of male sexuality. This is widely understood in general terms, but its implications are often underestimated. During adolescence, boys experience a pronounced surge in testosterone. Levels rise sharply and remain elevated for years. This hormonal abundance fuels physical development, increases sexual interest, heightens competitiveness, and intensifies goal-driven behavior. This is not a subtle influence. Testosterone creates a persistent internal pressure that shapes attention, motivation, and sexual focus throughout male development. Testosterone acts as a primary motivator. Testosterone influences a wide range of male behaviors. It is most commonly associated with traits such as aggression, competitiveness, risk-taking, confrontation, and impulsive decision-making. All of this is accurate. Elevated testosterone also intensifies sexual attraction toward women. It increases urgency, fixation, and pursuit. This heightened drive often pushes young men to prove themselves through action rather than restraint. In response, men frequently attempt to display value in exaggerated or ill-considered ways. These behaviors may appear reckless, immature, or irrational from the outside. Yet despite their lack of sophistication, they often succeed in capturing attention, particularly during adolescence. Testosterone does not optimize judgment, it amplifies motivation. Much of male behavior during youth can be understood as the result of strong drive paired with limited regulation. Understanding this dynamic explains why young men behave the way they do, and why those behaviors can still generate attraction despite their obvious flaws. Sex is not a biological drive. Sex is not a biological drive in the same sense as hunger, thirst, or the need to breathe. Deprivation of sex does not result in death, nor does it cause permanent physical damage. This distinction matters. Sex functions instead as biology's incentive and reward system. Pleasure reinforces behavior. Actions that have previously led to sexual success are more likely to be repeated because the reward feels powerful and motivating. During periods of elevated testosterone, this incentive can feel overwhelming. Desire may appear urgent, constant, and impossible to ignore. Yet despite the intensity of the urge, there is no physiological requirement compelling sexual activity. Once sex is understood as a reward mechanism rather than a survival drive, many patterns in male and female behavior become easier to interpret. Sexual dynamics are shaped less by necessity and more by conditioning, reinforcement, and response to stimuli. This perspective provides a clearer framework for understanding how attraction operates between the sexes. Masculinity and testosterone drive female attraction. Female attraction is often responsive to visible markers of masculinity and testosterone-influenced behavior. Displays of high value such as strength, intelligence, skill, competence, and willingness to take risks function as signals that draw attention and generate interest. For younger women in particular, attraction is frequently guided by what can be immediately observed. Lacking broader social context or long-term perspective, they may rely heavily on surface-level cues when evaluating potential partners. In this setting, pronounced demonstrations of confidence, daring, or dominance tend to register strongly. The more intense or dramatic the display, the greater the short-term pull. This dynamic helps explain why many adolescent girls and young women are drawn to men who are volatile, aggressive, or socially disruptive. These traits are not necessarily desirable in the long run, but they are often interpreted as signs of heightened masculinity in the short term. Understanding this distinction clarifies why attraction during youth is often driven by intensity rather than stability, and why testosterone-fueled behavior can produce immediate results even when it carries obvious downsides. Male sexuality is spontaneous. Male sexuality differs fundamentally from female sexuality in how it is activated. Whereas female desire is largely responsive to stimulus and context, male desire tends to arise spontaneously. Testosterone plays a central role in this distinction. Elevated levels make sexual arousal easy to trigger, frequent, and often disconnected from environment or circumstance. Visual cues, imagination, memory, or even boredom can be sufficient to activate desire. This spontaneity means that arousal does not require careful setup or external validation. It can emerge at inconvenient times, in inappropriate places, and without any conscious intent. Male desire prioritizes sexual attractiveness. Although men are generally capable of sexual interest under a wide range of conditions, preferences still exist. When given choice, men consistently favor higher physical attractiveness over lower attractiveness. This preference is driven by more than private desire. Attractiveness also functions as a social signal. Successfully attracting an attractive partner raises a man's perceived status among other men, serving as external validation of his desirability and competence. In this way, male attraction operates on two levels. It satisfies personal sexual interest while simultaneously signaling rank within male hierarchies. The woman herself becomes both a source of pleasure and a marker of achievement. Male desire includes sexual availability. Physical attractiveness alone is not sufficient to sustain male desire. A relationship that remains purely aesthetic or chaste offers limited value from a male perspective. In addition to appearance, men strongly value sexual availability. This preference is widely understood, including by women themselves. As a result, informal social norms often emerge to regulate female sexual availability. Women who are perceived as excessively available may be socially sanctioned, not necessarily out of morality, but because widespread availability lowers the perceived value of sexuality within the broader mating environment. This phenomenon is commonly referred to as slut-shaming. From a strategic standpoint, sexual availability can significantly increase a woman's appeal in short-term mating contexts. However, this same behavior may reduce perceived value in long-term or commitment-oriented contexts. Male desire responds to warmth and receptiveness. While physical appeal and overt sexuality can be powerful, especially in short-term contexts, most men also place value on emotional signals such as warmth and receptiveness. A woman who is physically attractive but emotionally distant often fails to sustain interest. Even when sexual availability is present, coldness or detachment can diminish overall appeal. By contrast, a woman who communicates openness, acceptance, and emotional ease can significantly increase her perceived value. Warmth and receptiveness operate subtly. They are conveyed through tone, responsiveness, body language, and emotional availability rather than explicit behavior. When these signals are present, they create a sense of ease and mutual interest that strengthens attraction. Although these traits alone do not guarantee compatibility or sexual quality, they are consistently regarded as desirable. They enhance connection, reduce friction, and make continued engagement more appealing from a male perspective. Male desire includes appreciation and respect. While sexual desire is a powerful motivator for men, it is not the only form of validation they seek. Men also place significant importance on feeling appreciated for their efforts and respected for their role. When appreciation is absent or when respect is undermined, motivation toward commitment often erodes. Over time, a lack of recognition can turn interest into resentment, even when physical attraction remains. Conversely, a woman who consistently acknowledges a man's contributions and treats him with respect increases her attractiveness in his eyes. Appreciation reinforces purpose. Respect reinforces identity. Together, these signals create a sense of value that extends beyond sex and supports longer-term engagement. Male desire responds to being needed. Despite common messaging to the contrary, men are not primarily motivated by total independence in a partner. While few men want to shoulder every responsibility in a relationship, extreme self-sufficiency can reduce perceived relational value. A woman who presents herself as entirely independent, hyper-competent, and emotionally closed communicates that a man may be optional rather than meaningful. This does not inspire engagement. It signals redundancy. By contrast, the willingness to express vulnerability and acknowledge the need for support often activates a protective and purposeful response in men. Feeling needed reinforces identity, responsibility, and commitment. There is an important distinction between helplessness and interdependence. Genuine need does not imply weakness. It implies trust and cooperation. Men are more likely to invest where their presence matters. When a man feels useful, relied upon, and valued, attraction deepens beyond surface desire.